first edition of Spooky Reviews from Spooky Ventures, I'm going to look at the joint Universal Blumhouse movie, The Invisible Man. Yes, I know it's been out for a few months now, but I just got a chance to see it recently. I had a lot of interest in this movie. For one thing, I'm a big fan of interconnected movie universes like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I know at one point Universal had wanted to create something they called the Dark Universe. It was to consist of a shared universe between rebooted versions of their classic monsters. When the Mummy film with Tom Cruise was met with a less than enthusiastic response from moviegoers, those plans were dropped. I'm hoping that if some of the newer ones, there are actually at least two others I know of in the works, a reboot of The Wolfman and The Bride of Frankenstein, do well, they might just revise those plans. I had heard some bad things about the movie. And part of it came from the remake suck crowd. Personally, I think some remakes do suck, just like some movies suck. The majority of movies and remakes fall into the category of good but, or very good but. Then there are the movies you come away with thinking, what a great movie. Invisible Man was in that last group for me. Then again, I was never that impressed with the original, so it wasn't that high of a bar to pass, but I'll get into more of that later. Back to the negative reviews of the movie. Some of the people trashing the film are the usual everything is a liberal plot crew. See, a lot of them seem to think that any movie with a strong lead female character is some sort of propaganda to make men look bad. I heard the same rubbish about the Captain Marvel movie, and they were back at it in force on this one. I have news. There was no liberal or feminist plot to this movie, or Captain Marvel, and if you are seeing plots against you with every movie that has a strong lead female character, the issue just might well be with you. Sure, this movie centers around a woman who escapes from an abusive relationship only to be tormented by her abuser after he supposedly takes his own life. That's called a plot, and it's one that unfortunately has parallels in real life experiences of many people, well, minus the tormenting after an apparent death part. The scenario has been used in movies for decades because it is a real-life thing for some people, which makes it realistic and believable. With that out of the way, I guess I should say that I'm not a huge fan of the original Invisible Man movie, which I mentioned, or even the original text by H.G. Wells, although I love H.G. Wells. Don't get me wrong, he wrote a great science fiction story for the time, but a lot of time and science has gone by since then. The science behind the story now resembles something closer to alchemy than real science. I've also never really felt that The Invisible Man was so much a horror movie, or that the character fit well with the other pack of Universal monsters. So for me, this was ripe for revision and updating. And revise and update was what this movie did. The science of the old one was thrown out in favor of science and technology that seems more viable. There is literally work being done in the real world on the type of technology used in the movie. So that is an updating that really worked well in my mind. Like the original, I don't really think of this as a horror movie per se. There were some real horror moments, but this is more of a thriller suspense film with both science fiction and horror angles. I'd even say that it leans towards superhero movies of the supervillain variety. Whatever type of movie you think it is, though, the film really works incredibly well. It's entertaining and keeps you on the edge of the seat a lot of the time. There are a few points where it stretches believability. I'm going to keep that until the end because it's a spoiler. Let me say, though, even though it was a that doesn't work moment, it definitely didn't really take away from the experience for me. So I would certainly land it in the highly recommend camp. I've become quite a big Blumhouse fan, so I expected to like this, and I was definitely not disappointed. Now to the spoiler. If you haven't seen the movie and don't want the spoiler, please stop watching now. Alright, for those of you still here, the thing that didn't really work for me is that when the Invisible Man, we're not sure which person it is by the time things are all over, shows up at the mental hospital, the suit starts glitching from the stabs from the pen. Then we can see that it got at least a couple glancing hits from the gun. Yet it seems like a short time later it's working right again, because it stops glitching. I think it was a convenient plot device to have it start working at full functioning after that, but it lost a little believability for me. Still, as I said, it was not enough to take away from the movie overall, and perhaps the whole thing was that they were both there in two suits at the time, and she shot one suit and the other one was unharmed. I mean, that would make sense too. But it, without the explanation, it does, mess with the believability a little bit. But again, not enough to take away from the movie. It's a great movie. Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.